Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another video. Welcome if you are new. We have a very exciting reading vlog today. I'm in a very different background. As you can probably tell, we are currently on holiday. We're currently in Corfu, which is one of the Greek islands, and yeah, we're here for just under a week. We landed this morning. Today is Tuesday. We're here until Sunday. And I thought we'd just take you for a week of reading in my life and a week of what I read when I'm away on holiday. So, first things first, on the train, absolutely not. On the plane on the way to Corfu, I read The Tainted by Taran Matharu, which is the second book of the Soulbound saga, the first one being Dragon Rider, which I read in a recent vlog. So this is the second book. I really enjoyed it. I think I preferred the first book. For reference, the first book follows a sort of prince who is living with his uncle or his enemy or something, and he watches a princess get married, and then that wedding ends in absolute bloodshed, and he runs away with a dragon egg from the marriage, and then the dragon gets born. He ends up going on this whole adventure. It goes a bit wrong, and that's like the first book. I really enjoyed that first book. Gave it 5 stars, top notch, big fan. This book was giving second book syndrome. It kind of felt like nothing much really happened, and it was all building up to something that's going to happen in the next book rather than this book having like a plot of its own. So I've given it 4 stars. I enjoyed a lot about it, but it did have that kind of like middle book feel to it. So I'm excited for the third one. Hasn't been announced, assuming it's coming at some point. Yeah, that's what I was reading on the plane on the way here. I then sat by the pool downstairs, started Ready or Not by Cara, Bastone, which is a very different vibe. This is an accidental pregnancy trope romance, which I'm actually really enjoying because it's following the pregnancy rather than like the first year of birth or anything kind of beyond that point. So we are following a girl called Eve who lives in a little apartment in Brooklyn. She has a female best friend. Her female best friend has a brother who is also one of her best friends. And then Eve goes out, has a one-night stand, and you pick up the story from when she finds out she's pregnant, and she then has to go and tell the guy that she had the one-night stand with. She then starts developing some feelings for the brother of her best friend, and it all gets a little bit messy, but it's actually told in quite like a little quirky way, and it's almost funny, which I find a really interesting kind of writing style. I've never read Cara Bastone, and I don't actually know what her other books are, but off the back of this, I would be quite interested to read some of her other books because I'm really enjoying the writing style and kind of how light-hearted it is while also dealing with quite a serious topic. Because like there's friction between her and her best mate because her best mate is trying to get pregnant, and obviously she accidentally falls pregnant. So there's like a little bit of something going on there. There's lots of very interesting relationships in this book, and I'm actually enjoying it. I do feel like it gets very mixed reviews, and at the moment I'm falling on the enjoying side of it. So I'm currently on page 198, so I'm about halfway through. I will obviously keep reading this book and I will keep you posted on how I get on, but that is what I've read today. 600 pages of The Tainted and then 200 pages of Ready or Not by Cara Bastone for my travel day, and then tomorrow I think is our active day, and then we don't know what we're doing after that, but I will keep you posted. But this is the current book and I will let you know when I finish it. I'm actually really enjoying this book. I have now got to page 255, so there was about 100 pages left. I earmarked a quote because I just loved it. Are you ready? If I was like a quote highlighter, I would definitely have highlighted this quote. His eyes pop open. From this close, they're a far lighter brown than I thought they were. Almost yellow, almost gold, late afternoon sun, that buxom orange right after it gives up and fades to twilight. Oh, come on, that's beautiful. So yeah, I am really enjoying this book. We've now got to the point where something's got to give, someone's got to give. She's just given some really good, basically life advice from an observation she's made to one of the characters in this book. And I'm really interested to see what's now going to happen next to them, now that she's sort of woken them up a little bit. So yeah, I'm actually really enjoying it. And I do think this is going to be a one and done, start today, finish today book, in the same way that A Tainted was. Although that one I did have a 4-hour flight. This one I just have the joy. So I'm gonna go sit in bed, finish this book off, and then probably head to bed. Absolutely no notes. The pacing is quite slow, which normally grates me like no tomorrow. I actually really enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 stars, big fan. I really enjoyed that it was a bit more of a slice of life book, which normally I hate, but I think it was the writing. The writing was just really infectious and really easy, so big fan. So I started and finished The Wolf King last night, or actually yesterday. I mainly read it out on and about, which is why I haven't talked to you about it, but it was actually a lot of fun. Like, it's one of those books where it's not going to change your life. It's not the most well-written, well-rounded story I've ever read ever, but if you want like a fun little spicy werewolf romance, then absolutely go for it. And I've already got a second book downloaded, which I'll probably read later today or tomorrow. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. It was a good time, not a long time, you know, that type of vibe. And now we've moved on to The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is on my monthly TBR. I got to page 69 last night before I got tired and went to bed. It's reading really fast. I forget how quick Jennifer Lynn Barnes's writing is. Probably because it's a YA book and I am 30, but I am actually still really enjoying it. It's following a person called Avery. She is, I think her mother has passed away, or at least both her parents aren't on the scene. I can't remember if both of them died or just abandoned her, and she is in the guardianship of her sister, and the two of them are financially really struggling, and let's face it, have very little money. And she is very smart. She's at school. You follow the beginning of the book where she absolutely aces a test and they assume she's cheated. Like, she's very smart, and she then gets met at the principal's office by a lawyer who basically says, you have been written into the will of a man who's just passed. This man is in the top 10 richest people in America. Like, he is a multi-billionaire. She goes to the house, the will gets read, and the will is she has inherited most of his wealth and his assets and his houses and his, like, the most ridiculous level of wealth, and she has never met him. And we've got to the bit where the four grandchildren who thought they were going to inherit everything, or even the 2 daughters who thought they were going to inherit everything, have obviously discovered that she's inherited most things, and the reactions are not positive. And so this is where we are. They're hinting to some sort of game, which I imagine, hence the name of the show, or name of the book even, and I am very excited to see what happens next. But yeah, it's reading very quickly. I think I read all of this in sort of like half an hour last night. I finished this book. It's interesting because I can't quite work out what the story has been left on a sort of cliffhanger of, I assume we're going to follow one of the brothers next, but I can't quite work out what the overarching plot is going to be, because it kind of, apart from the last epilogue where it kind of reopens the story up a little bit, it does feel relatively finished. I don't know, it's like a slightly weird plotline to extend out into a series. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I would give it like a solid 4 stars. I'm interested to see where the series is gonna go. I enjoyed the characters. I really liked Avery. But yeah, I don't really know where the series is gonna go. Yeah, there was just something about it that wasn't like absolutely gripping me, but it was good. And I'm intrigued to see where the story goes next. So I finished that, and then I've made it 45% of the way through, or 48% of the way through The Night Prince, which is the second book after The Wolf King. So I started that book yesterday, read it, devoured it. I'm on the second book. This one feels a little bit slower in terms of pace, but I mean, it's still fun. It's just like a fun little silly, goofy, romantic-y, spicy. So yeah, I'm currently reading this book. I can't really tell you what happens in this book without ruining the end of the first book, but yeah. I also feel like there's sort of like a love triangle forming, but like not really. I'm interested to see how that plays out. So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading this book and I will keep you posted. Very backlit, but you're just gonna have to cope. I finished The Night Prince last night. It was actually really, really fun. It is part of a trilogy though, which I thought was a duology. So now I have to wait for the third book to come out. But great. But I still had a lot of fun. It was like quirky and it was just like a good time, you know? It's not gonna like set your world alight in terms of the writing or in terms of the kind of interesting plot, but it was like fun. It was a fun read, and that's exactly what we want on holiday. So I read The Wolf King, I read The Night Prince, and now I'm going to read another book, and I don't know what book to read. I feel like I should read When the Moon Hatched, because that is on my monthly TBR. Oh, you are so backlit. That is on my monthly TBR. So are the two books I bought with me, which are The Truth About Melody Browne by Lisa Jewell and Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. These are also on my TBR, so I feel like I should read one of these, but I might read this one. I'm going to read the Lisa Jewell book. I feel like it's going to be a complete change of pace for the previous books I've been reading, which have all been like fantasies. Well, there's been one YA something or other. I don't know what the Inheritance Games is classified as, but I've read a lot of fantasy so far. So I'm going to read Lisa Jewell, The Truth About Melody Browne, which is about a woman called Melody Browne who is in her early 30s, and then she kind of has forgotten parts of her past, but then she begins to remember, and I think there's something like in there that's a bit sinister that obviously she's now starting to pick up again. But yeah, I mean, Lisa Jewell is obviously an exceptional author. I picked this one up slightly on a whim while I was in either Tesco or Sainsbury's, I can't remember. So it was a little bit of a random book for me, but I also freaking love this author, so I'm interested to see what this book's about. But yeah, I think this is going to be my next book. It's got relatively big text and it's only 372 pages, so I'm sure I'll finish this today. But yeah, book number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 or 6? I don't know, I've lost track. By God, have I got some book updates. So, first things first, I finished The Truth About Melody Browne by Lisa Jewell. It was fine. I think if it was sold more as a well, it wasn't really sold as anything to me because I picked it up randomly, but Lisa Jewell to me is a thriller author. If this was sold as a lit fic with a slightly mystery element to it, I probably would have really enjoyed it. Because I went into it expecting it to be a Lisa Jewell thriller with twists and turns you don't see coming, I was kind of disappointed. It felt more like a character development story than it actually felt like a thriller. The twists and turns you could kind of just see coming, and it wasn't really that twisty or that turny or that thrillery. But it was well written, and I enjoyed the characters, and there were some good bits of it, but it just, to me, this wasn't like a Lisa Jewell book, it was just like a book. So I gave it 3 stars, but I think if you go into this with the right expectations, you could probably enjoy it. You're effectively following Melody Browne. She goes out for a date with this guy who doesn't really ever seem to get referenced ever again. Well, he does, but like, not really. She goes out for a date with a guy, and she gets hypnotised, and something in that hypnotisingness unlocks some memories of her childhood from before the age of, I think it's 7 she's forgotten. And you basically watch her remember quite a traumatic childhood. And like, that was interesting. It was an interesting plot. It was an interesting concept. But the whole book is building up to what should be a massive reveal that doesn't ever seem to come. So yeah, it was fine. I enjoyed it enough. I wouldn't necessarily like tell you to rush out and recommend it. I do think Lisa Jewell has better books. But if you want less of a twisting, turning book and more of just like an interesting deep dive into a interesting childhood, go for it. I then read, what's the book called? Honestly, we sat by the pool for most of yesterday afternoon, so I managed to read quite a lot. I then read When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker, which I managed to get to 65% of the way through before I think soft DNFing it. I might pick it up another point, I'm not really sure. But it genuinely feels like they've tried to take the bits of Throne of Glass that people loved. Like the main character, he's a bit of a sarcastic assassin, a little bit sassy, very independent, very fierce. Some of the plot lines of Throne of Glass mainly around the main character, and then they've tried to like pick that up and translate it into a new book, and it doesn't really work. And also it just felt like we were going from one place to another place, another place, another place, and they weren't necessarily connected. They all just felt a little bit random. So I'm finishing the book. I got to 65%. I felt like I got a decent chunk through before giving up. I was just really struggling to follow. Like, one minute she was completing a task, the next minute she was
arrested. The next minute she was in a tribe and they wanted to put a baby in her. And the next minute she was somewhere else. And it felt like none of the book made any sense. It felt like the author had got all these little like plot ideas and had just written them and decided to throw them all into one book. Didn't make any sense. So, finished that book, and I'm now starting Slaying the Vampire Conqueror by Carissa Broadbent, which is, I think, book 2.5 in the Crowns and Iaxia. Like, the Crowns and Iaxia series is primarily, well, it's currently 2 duologies, and then there's 1 or 2 little, like, additional stories, and this is one of them. And I don't really know what this one's about. I just enjoy this universe. I enjoy Carissa Broadbent's writing, and I kind of felt like I needed to go somewhere a little bit safe after When the Moon Hatched, and somewhere that I know I'm going to enjoy. So that's the book I'm going to read next by the pool.
So, we've spent all day by the pool, which means I've read quite a lot of books. So I finished Slaying the Vampire Conqueror by Carissa Broadbent, which is like a little extra book in the Crowns and Iaxia universe. You're following someone, I've already forgotten her name, it's not important. You're following someone who was part of like a religious cult sort of thing, who's been tasked with killing one of the vampires, who is like the Conqueror, who wants to take over the human race, or at least this part of the human race, and he wants to like conquer them. And she's been tasked with like gaining his trust, and then, you know, you can guess. And in the process of gaining his trust, I'm sure you can see where it's gonna go. It's a little bit spicy, but I would say like, I think there's like 2 spicy scenes, and you could probably just skim through them if you're not into spice. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Carissa Broadbent has such great writing. You just want to keep reading the whole thing. I mean, I don't think I've read anything from her outside of the Crowns and Iaxia universe, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that book. Good read, solid, a very nice shift from When the Moon Hatched, which I just could not get into. So I would say like 4, maybe 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed it, had a great time. And then I've recently moved on to Nocticadia, which I am 35% of the way through. So this is a book by Kerri. It is a standalone sort of fantasy, but it's kind of more like a gothic fiction romance situation. We've just got to the bit which I think is going to mean the story is going to be pretty damn spicy, but I'm not sure. It was pretty graphic. So I don't know, but we are following a girl who I'm so bad with names. I've already forgotten what her name is. I don't know. Anyway, her mum dies of a mysterious, like, creepy illness where worms kind of come out of her mouth and she dies. But in the lead up to it, she's got all these like weird symptoms, and she's at university. She gets tasked at university to write an essay about a made-up illness, or, you know, what should be a made-up illness. So she writes quite graphically about what happened to her mother, because she's been led to believe that she imagined it and it wasn't real. So she writes like an essay about this. The lecturer obviously works out what's going on, and then she gets enrolled into a university, I think called Nocticadia, or is it like something similar to Nocticadia? She gets enrolled in this university where the lecturer or professor, I don't know what you call them, is studying the illness that her mother had. And I get the impression there's going to be a professor-student romance, I think, pretty sure. But it's I wouldn't say fun. Fun's the wrong word, but fun's the only word I can think of. And I'm actually really enjoying it. But like I said, at least the scene I just read is hella spicy. So if you're not into that, I think, considering we're still quite early in the book, and it's a long book. I think this book is like 650, 700 pages. So we're quite early in the story, and there's already been, you know, I can imagine it's going to get quite graphic, but I am still enjoying it nonetheless, and I'm excited to see where the story's going to go. I feel like it's just heating up in terms of like the actual plot line, and also, yeah. So yeah, I'm very excited to see where it's going to go. And just a quick book check-in. I
I'm thoroughly enjoying this book. I think I'm 56, maybe 60% of the way through, somewhere in that region. Loving it. It's like a proper old-fashioned romantasy. Well, there's not even a fantasy element to it. It's just like a dark-ish romance. Like, I feel like if you want to like get into the dark gothic romance, but you don't want to like fully get into it, yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's good fun. I'm gonna keep reading it on the plane, and yeah, I'll get you posted probably when I get home with a full wrap-up.
I'm officially home, as you can probably tell from the familiar background, and two things. Finished Nocticadia, freaking loved it. What I need to do now I've got stable Wi-Fi is work out if the end of the book is setting up the next book. I don't think there is, but there is a novella called Phobia, which might be linked. I'm not sure. Basically, at the end of the book, it sets up a potential relationship with her sister and someone. So, not sure, but I freaking loved it. I'm actually now really excited to read Kerri Lake's other series. This one wasn't a series, but her other duology, which is Anathema, and I can't remember what the second book is called. I'm actually now really excited to read that because I really enjoyed Nocticadia. And then I also read Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. This was cute. It was like a little cutesy little book that I was reading on the plane, but I feel like sat by a fire or that kind of like cutesy little vibe for this book would be perfect. It was cute. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was like the best thing I've ever read, but we're basically following a young woman. Well, she's not young, she's 30. She's a 30-year-old woman called Belladonna Blackthorn, which, come on, that is like a solid 10/10 name. And she is a witch, but hasn't really dabbled much in her witchy abilities. She just kind of has it. And on her 30th birthday, she gets called forward for basically like a trial or a challenge. Trial makes it sound way more than it is, but like a trial or a challenge that if she passes it, she gets to keep her magic. If she fails it, they take her magic away. And that's kind of like the beginning of the story. And it really wraps up as like a pretty well wrapped up standalone fantasy, but it is part of a series. The second book is now out, but I do think you could probably just read this as a little standalone book. There's a couple of threads not quite wrapped up, but at the end of the day, it kind of works as a standalone. So there you have it. I read a lot of books while I was on holiday. I'm not quite sure how much I spoke about each of them because I was on holiday. I wasn't really paying much attention. But the books I read, as a quick little summary, are The Tainted Khan by Taran Matharu, which is the second book after Dragon Rider. Cute, enjoyed it, definitely felt like a middle book, and it definitely felt like that book was just getting you from the first book to whatever's going to happen in the third book. But I still really enjoyed it. I don't know, I gave it 4 stars? Yeah, 4 stars. I really enjoyed the change of pace in that series and the fact that there's not a romance in it whatsoever. Well, there kind of is, but not really. You're from a male point of view, it's a typical fantasy. So I actually quite enjoy it to be a change of pace in like the romantasies and fantasies of romances that I typically read. We then read Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. Cute. It felt like a character study, and typically books like that which seem to like not really follow like there is an overarching plot. There's like a sort of love triangle, there's a pregnancy, but like there wasn't like something you were trying to solve, and typically those kinds of things bore me. But I really enjoyed this book, and a lot of it was because I really freaking loved Cara Bastone's writing. There was something so light and airy and fresh about it. Big fan. We then read Book 1 and Book 2 of the Wolf King series, of which there will be 3 or potentially more books, but at least 3 books. The Wolf King and The Night Prince. I loved these. They were just like cheesy little romantasy books, and I just had a whale of a time, and I'm looking forward to the third one coming out. I then read Jennifer Lynn Barnes' The Inheritance Games, book number 1. It was fun, it was cutesy, I gave it 4 stars. I'm excited to see where the series is going to go, but I'm also a bit confused where the series is going to go. So yeah, I'm definitely going to continue, but like where it's going, I'm not really sure. We then read about 70% before DNFing it of When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I struggled with this book so much, and part of me wants to try and reread it at one point, but it was just, it felt like you were jumping from plot to plot to plot to plot to plot, and the plots weren't connected. They were just a little bit random. And then it was trying to use all the really like famous booktube, BookTok, Bookstagram part of Throne of Glass and trying to like twist that into a new story. And it just wasn't working for me. It just didn't work. So I actually DNF'd that book, but part of me wants to try and reread it at some point, but that's a later problem. We then read Lisa Jewell, The Truth About Melody Browne. And then I went with this for me as I went into it with the wrong expectation. I went into it thinking it was going to be like a twisty, turny thriller, which I think is what it's supposed to be, but it just doesn't read like that. It doesn't read like a twisty, turny thriller. It reads like a character development book, like a typical fiction with a very tiny subplot of thriller, but mostly it's about someone trying to find themselves. And I felt like if I read it knowing that, I probably would have loved it. But because I went in thinking it was something else, it kind of left me disappointed. So that's my review of that book. I then read Carissa Broadbent's Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, which that was fun. It was cutesy, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was like the best thing I've ever read, but it was definitely fun after I read When the Moon Hatched, which I didn't enjoy. We then read Nocticadia by Kerri Lake, which I freaking loved. Big fan, can't wait to read some more books by this author. And then we finished off with Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood, which was cute little book. Cute little end to this video. So these are all the books I read while I was on holiday. I really hope you guys enjoyed spending the week with me. If you did, give this video a thumbs up, click subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you want to see from me, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!